It means that we really need to be aware of what's going on out there on a global level. So traditionally, and it's really the place of disruption, where disruption's happening. So a linear curve kind of, goes slowly, and people get used to change as change happens and things occur. With an exponential curve, it's it's almost linear to begin with, and then it takes off. So for a great definition of exponential, I'm actually going to refer you to the talk that Kyla did at Work Club. But if we think about exponential in terms of, it's where the disruption happens, and it kind of creeps up on you. So I'll just use Google as an example. So Google had a mission to gather the world's information, okay? And it was a laborious task, and how they went about developing that was a longer process. But all of a sudden, it took off. So it was like, it didn't make a difference, it didn't make much difference, it didn't make much difference, and then it kind of took off. So businesses really need to be aware of the gentle curves that are happening, the gentle changes, because the sustainable, the incremental changes that are happening in organisations and in industries are going to turn exponential. So a lot of them will just hook up and curve. So when I was, just before I went to the Boston Innovation Conference earlier this year, I was in San Francisco, and I saw a sign that said, "Don't pay your parking fine." And there's a 19-year-old who's developed an algorithm that helps 80-something% of people get off their parking fines. So he's got these billboards everywhere around San Francisco that say, "Don't pay your parking fine," that I actually saw. And that's an example of what's going to happen to the law industry. So and the fine industry, and where we're going to raise money from for roads and transport, because we raise money from fines. So all these areas where we don't actually realise disruption is going to happen, that's where disruption is going to happen, and that's where it's really good to keep an eye on that exponential curve. So the other thing is LED lighting, and areas where you actually don't imagine that might happen. For example, in agriculture, because we've been using light to grow certain crops, but all of a sudden the LED light, which is so much cheaper, so it's that demonetisation which leads to democratisation of resources, where the exponential curves can actually take off. So all industries need to keep an eye on it and need to be. So I've got this thing about, if you spend 80% of your time on business as it is, and 20% of your time, so it's the old 80-20 rule, which is as old as the hills, but a lot of people don't do it. 80% of your time business as is, 20% going, where are we going? Where's the potential openings? And thinking about what is at the end of the game, not necessarily just the next step, but thinking, as Tesla and Elon Musk do, what's at the end of that tunnel, not just where are we heading, step by step. Singularity University, so one of the reasons I fell in love with them a few years ago, I heard Salim Ismail speak about demonetisation, democratisation. He's got a theory around the 6 Ds of singularity, basically. And we've been frightened about the singularity for quite some time. So Ray Kurzweil predicted that by 2045, the singularity would happen, that we will merge with AI, we will be one with technology, whatever that looks like. So Singularity University in itself has taken the best of technology and has tried to demystify it, has tried to de-fear it, but also marry it with impacting 1 billion people for better. So taking the world's grand challenges, for example, hunger. So many places around the world that don't have access to education, even clean water, food, all these things that impact our world on a global level. Singularity University has made it their mission to impact 1 billion people and improve things around the world. So that, for me, it's a growing movement. We've got the WISE Council, the leaders that have put together the global goals. So the 17 global goals, which are closely aligned to Singularity University. Peter Diamandis, who's a co-founder of Singularity University, is also a founder of the X Prize. A lot of the global challenges, a lot of the places where people, like the billionaires, are pouring money into to improve the way the world functions and to look after its own. That, for me, is why Singularity is important. There are early adopters. So in Australia, we're just leading it. We've just been granted the first licence. So Newcastle City has just been granted the first chapter licence in Australia. Hopefully Sydney is next. and it's a growing movement. So we got early adopters, we've got a few laggards happening, but you know, it is a movement around the globe. Singularity University is very much about that exponential curve, but it's about using that exponential curve to disrupt the world in a good way. So how do we feed the world's population? How do we reduce carbon emissions by taking, for example, space travel outside the ozone layer? So people like Branson are working on you know, transporting people on the outside of that layer. So what we're seeing is not people that want to be the world's first civil astronauts, but what we're seeing is a technology that will take carbon emissions and all the pollution that's happening from air travel outside of our zone, so that we have a cleaner atmosphere. The same with Tesla. You know, Tesla they're working on the car, but so when I was at Tesla 2 years ago at the Tesla factory in Reno, Nevada, at the Tahoe Reno Industrial Centre, what we were told there was the reason that Elon Musk worked on the $200,000 car first was so that he could fund the $130,000 car. So he knew that an elite number of people could afford the $200,000 car, but he had minimal, you know, he had a minimal quantity of them made so that they would become a sought after item, so that he could fund the next one. And then the funds from that was used to fund the cheaper car, so that now they're working on the $30,000 Tesla car, which is what the average price of a new car in America is, so that people can afford it. But the other thing that really I love about what they're doing is that they want Tesla to be the best car, not the best electric vehicle. Because if they're the best electric vehicle, their market is a little bit niched in people who are into green tech and who are prepared to invest in green technology. If they make the best car, everybody's going to want to buy it. So that's, you know, it's all that mentality and that ideology and that thinking where the exponential and singularity for me come together. So we democratise, we demonetise, we make things more accessible, and we impact as many people around the world for good as we can. So I think even outside of Singularity University, we hear a lot of talk around passion and purpose. We hear a lot of talk around the global goals now. So there's a lot of projects that are aligning themselves to the global goals. And more and more people are becoming aware of the work of the Elders Council with the global goals. So I think every time you hear something around passion and purpose, it is aligned and it is a movement, whether they are directly related or not. It doesn't really matter. So I think there's a reason why we're talking in terms of universal basic income. I mean, universal basic income is being trialled in 30 countries around the world as we speak. You know, California just had a city that is now trialling the universal basic income. So that's one thing, so that we all start at an equal level. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs are all met: food, clothing, shelter. You know, once that's met, then it becomes up to the individual where they want to go with that. So if you want to work 60 hours a week, you can, and you'll be justly rewarded for working the 60 hours a week. If I want to lay back, which I don't, but if I wanted to lay back and only work 2 hours a week, I would be rewarded for my 2 hours a week. So that it's not that everybody maintains a level footing, but we start from having all our needs met, and that kind of eliminates the greed and all that the inequality around survival and looking after our children. So there's universal basic income, there's passion and purpose. There's a group of billionaires in Puerto Rico at the moment. They've bought up a certain part of Puerto Rico, and they're trialling blockchain and cryptocurrency as the new economic exchange. So what will that look like? And those people that think blockchain and crypto aren't going to happen, they need to really disrupt their own thinking and wonder how that is going to affect their industry, because it will be there. So all these things that are happening at the moment are moving towards a more equal, more shared, completely different social structure of how we're going to live in the new world. I think the most important thing for businesses and entrepreneurs to do is to actually identify what success means to them. So success may mean impacting 1 billion people. Success may mean impacting one person who may impact someone else who will impact someone else. I know there's stories of, so I was stopped on a walk the other day. I heard my name and I turned around and someone said to me, "Oh, look, I was in that workshop that you did a few years ago, and I just want you to know how it impacted the next couple of weeks and all the decisions that I made. And that's something that I never would have known. And that happens so many times to different individuals, where you impact somebody on a what you think is a minute level, but it has an ongoing, outgoing effect. So I think it's really important that people understand what their idea of success is. So is it to be, you know, a Tony Robbins who gets up in front of thousands of people every week and spruiks positivity, and I don't mean spruiks in a negative way. You know, I think one of the main traits of successful entrepreneurs is optimism, positivity, resilience. You know, so I think somebody who impacts people on a wide level or on a small level is all impact and is all improving the way that society is going, the way that workplaces are happening. So I think we need to actually understand what success is to us individually. So that would be the first and foremost thing. Then it's about understanding how your industry might be disrupted, and it's all about problem solving. So in the short term, it really is about identifying problems and being at the forefront of solving what those problems are. It's about not being a laggard, and it's about, especially for small businesses and entrepreneurs, it's not allowing the curve to do this. So you work hard and you're rewarded and you've got a few clients, and then all of a sudden it dips down because you haven't been working to the 80-20 rule. And for me, as I said before, the 80-20 rule really is about 80% on business as I'm developing it, as I'm going forward, as I want to be impactful, and 20% of my time needs to be spent researching what's coming next. What are the other problems that can be identified that I can work towards solving? But I think 20% of the time needs to be spent on your massively transformative purpose. So it's not only having an MVP anymore, it's about what impact can I have on a wide scale? How high can I reach? What are my moonshots? What are the big goals, the big aspirations, the big hairy audacious goals, as Jim Collins puts it? And I think we need to be working towards those now in order to have real impact, but it needs to be balanced with how we're going to progress and how we're going to move forward. So I think it's really important for businesses and entrepreneurs to be widely read and to know what's happening within their industry, but to know what's going on in other industries as well. I have this saying that says, adopt and adapt. Read what's going on out there. If something resonates with you and you can adapt it into your business, into your industry, use it, bring it in, collaborate. You know, we've been talking about collaboration. None of this is really new. You know, collaboration is not a new concept. Adapting and adopting, bringing things in, diversity of thinking, design thinking has been around since the 60s. But we're kind of a bit laggedy in taking it on. We're really good at spruiking it. We're really good at understanding it. We're good at going to workshops about it, but adapting it into our day-to-day. So my thing would be brave, be courageous, have big, hairy, audacious goals, do the moonshot thinking, be knowledgeable about what's going on in the world, and aim to have an impact.